So V-shaped hulls. The two examples I give are both modified V-shaped hulls. They're not true 100% V-shaped. In fact, there's no personal watercraft that looks like this all the way down. The only one that is the most of a V-shape from nose to stern is the Ultra. All right, the Kawasaki Ultra is the most aggressive V-shaped hull. Okay. And that means that it also has the most wetted surface or the most drag. So it's important to note this, okay? It has a 22 and a half, I think it's a 22 and a half dead rise. And I'm going to talk about dead rise just in a minute, okay? Which means the angle of the V. And it has a very aggressive dead rise. And if you go and you crawl underneath an Ultra, you're going to see that that hull shape, that V shape, carry the furthest down the ski. Now, interestingly enough, they all kind of mellow out. All right, they start like this and they go like that. All right, the further you go, midships is about the halfway point. The further back you go, the more they flatten out that V. Okay, the Cowie has the most aggressive bow dead rise and keel dead rise. I do not have the numbers off the keel dead rise off of the Ultra, but anyone who's looked at the back of an Ultra, you'll know for an absolute fact that the keel dead rise on an Ultra is the most aggressive of any personal watercraft out on the market today. Okay, so, and then the other example I give is the ST3. The ST3 is the platform for the current 2018 and up full-size three-seaters. And that is a terrible example. It's a terrible example, and I probably should get in trouble for using it. But here's the reason why I'm using it. A, Sea-Doo advertises as a deep V hull. It is not. They are capitalizing on a very catchy marketing term. All right. Cowie made its name. They cut their teeth in 2007 and up advertising the deep V hull. Okay, the ST3 is not a deep V hull by any means. What it has is an incredibly aggressive dead rise at the nose. All right, the bow dead rise is incredibly deep. All right, it's actually 23 degrees. It's more aggressive than the Ultra, believe it or not. But it's like, it's like this. But then it immediately flattens out. Why does it flatten out? Because they knew in designing that hull that they were going to build the Fish Pro off of it. So what they're doing is that they're grafting a very aggressive deep V nose onto a relatively flat-bottomed hull design. The new RX-PX, here, let's say this is, here we go. Here's the bond line, okay? And my chin is the keel. So the angle going from the edge of this line to my chin, that is our dead rise. I'm trying to do this with my hand. Okay, so here we go. Well, it's not a perfect V. It actually rolls in, okay? It makes a nice roll. This angle right here does not come down flat and then cut in. The ST3 does. The Fish Pro does. The GTX Limited. The RXTX, the GTX line, all right? They come flat and then come into almost 90 degree. It's like this, all right? It's like 118 degrees or 120 degrees. It's something like that. But it's almost completely dead flat, and then it goes into a shelf. A flat running shelf like a pontoon boat. The RXPX does not do that. The RXPX rolls. Has a nice round rolled edge. And why do you want that? Because if you're going into a turn, you have a nice flat, or not flat, but a nice rounded contact surface that carries you all through a turn. Okay? That is an outside chine. When I talk about outside chine, this is the angle I'm talking about. Whether it's round like a FZR or an RXPX, or a GP 1800R, or even the the FXs. The FXs have a rounded outside chine. Those angles, those outside angles, Those are your chimes. It's important to pay attention to that because let's say you got a ski with 3 of those. All right. Center one, middle one, outside one. And they're all sharp like this. Let's just pretend we have this one. Okay. As it accelerates, all right, it's riding on the outsides, but it accelerates, it's going to step up one. The ski is going to pop out of the water a little bit higher. It's going to pop up on this one. Then you go full speed. You're going 70 miles an hour. It goes, whoop, we only need this much surface. So it goes down to that one. Okay. So you'll literally feel the ski as it rises to its planing surface. It's going to go pop. It's going to pop up. Yamaha wave runners have strakes. And what these strakes do, all right, they're pointed down. Typically, they're pointed down or maybe a little bit out. Those strakes help stabilize the craft as it goes through a variation of water conditions. Why does Yamaha depend so heavily on strakes, on what they call a lifting strake? Why do they? Look at the GPs, guys. Roll a GP over, or just go look at a picture. You can go Google GP 1800R hull, and they'll roll over, and you're going to see a sequence of strakes. They're relying on those strakes because that is its tracking surface. All right. When it's going fast, it's using those strakes to keep it straight. So let's talk about hull designs and what skis do best in what conditions. Everyone does fine on glass. Everyone does great on glass. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, which I think is great, is that the ST3, all right, the RXTX does great on glass, and it's fast on glass, and guys are going fast on RXTXs. They're getting speed out of it. All right. Here's the problem, though. It's doing that because the keel's not doing much. The nose isn't doing much because it doesn't need it. All right. I said keel and I meant the bow. All right. That very vertical dead rise in the front. It's not doing a lot of work because that ski's out of the water. But what happens, you start getting into 2 foot, 3 foot chop with an RXTX. Okay. That really pronounced bow starts to catch. It'll actually catch the really rough water, the water, the cross tracking, the current. It'll catch and it'll require the rider to put in a lot more input to keep that bow straight. That keel's going like this, and let's say a weird angled swell comes in, it'll catch and it'll go, whoa, and it'll pull. And if you're not paying attention, it'll whip right out of your hands. So let's talk about rough water applications. Kawasaki. Let's start at the top. Let's start with the Ultra. All right. When I was racing offshore, I raced Ultras because at the time they were the best hull. I mean, everyone just was like, "That's the best hull. That's the best." It's to the point that everyone's like, "Oh, it's Cowie water out there. Ooh, it's so rough. It's Cowie water." Okay. So I built a couple Ultras and raced Ultras and jacked my wrist up on an Ultra and blew the coolant hoses off halfway to Catalina Island and all that kind of fun stuff, racing. And you weren't going over 72, 73 on an Ultra. It just wasn't possible at the time. And the reason being for that is, again, as I mentioned, a deep V hull has a lot of wetted surface. It means it has a lot of drag, okay? So the Cowie, and why the Cowie does so well in rough water is A, because it has a very aggressive dead rise that cuts through chop, and so much of the Watercraft is down in the water. So it's not skimming across the water. It's blasting, just bang, 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 cutting its way like a World War II battleship through that rough water. Okay. Yeah, Cowie is a really good rough water unit, especially because of the wear and tear on the rider itself. You don't feel the fatigue that you might feel on another ski because it's soaking up so much. It just it kind of insulates the rider from a lot of the banging and a lot of the vibrations. Now, when it comes to less aggressive deep V hulls, all right, Yamaha really at no time talks about the deep V hull because their dead rise is actually a very mild dead rise. It's something like 17%. Okay, it's a very, or 17 degrees. I shouldn't say percent. 17-degree dead rise. It's a very mild round hull. All right. But what's interesting is that they're using the strakes to compensate for that. And that is why you're seeing FXs and you're seeing GPs that scream across the water because there's so little wetted surface. It's not dragging through the water. And those strakes are helping it track through any situation in chop or rough water. Okay. But here's the problem with those that a lot of people have encountered. And in my example, I said before that it tracks true and it handles true, but the comfort level's low. And why is the comfort level low? The comfort level in this scenario, and not in using the word comfort in the definitions that I established at the beginning of this video, is that Nano Excel 2 is very thin. It's strong, but it's thin. And when it's thin, it flexes. The other half of it is that they do not pack that Watercraft with the same amount of insulation that you would say an Ultra Cowie, all right, or even an ST3 hull seated. So you're feeling, especially on an SVHO GP 1800R, you're going to feel everything. You're just going to rattle across the water, but you're going to do it straight, and you're going to be able to execute any turn you want. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out. This clip was taken from our weekly podcast that we record here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to watch the whole video, you can go to the Watercraft Journal's YouTube channel, go to playlists, and then click on live sessions. You're going to see it there. Otherwise, go ahead and leave a like, a comment, and definitely subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. And again, thanks again for watching our videos, and we hope to see you soon.